Imagine your favorite Counter-Strike player flying across the world to play a single best of 3 just to lose and instantly get eliminated. And now he can no longer win the lion's share of $1 million. If that's something that interests you, well, I've got the event for you. You're watching Fantasy Focus, powered by 22Bet. So up next, we have what has to be one of the most cutthroat, brutal, badass tournaments that I could possibly think of in the last few years. I'm talking about the Gamers8 event. Gamers8 is $1 million prize pool. It is a 16-team format with single elimination. You lose 1BO3, you're done, you're toast. There's no second chances, there's no hand holding, there is nothing but elimination every step of the way to that $400,000 prize pool. Now, surely on their way to the Gamers8 tournament are some of your favorite talents. So of course, we gotta check in to see how the celebrity leaderboard is going 4 events deep into the season. You've got a new leader. First and foremost, P2's reign of terror has come to a very quick end, and a very familiar face in Maniac has taken back over that top spot. Now, he lost last season at the very last event. He's currently sitting first nice and early. Who can dethrone him? That is the question. And honestly, one of the answers I wasn't expecting is Machine. Machine had a phenomenal event just now coming off of the Cologne playoffs. Phenomenal event in fantasy and commentary, need I add. But here he is sitting at the very top. This is the best start Machine has ever had. It wasn't even close. You know, Machine's somebody who tapered off somewhere towards halfway point last season. And here he is, 45 points deep, 4 games in. P2 retained that 3rd spot in top 3, and that's all fine and dandy. We can talk about these guys all day long, but the real star of the show after the Cologne playoffs is nobody other than Hugo Byron. Yeah, that's right. Hugo Byron is now the newest member of the Big Bucks Club, and with his 2% finish using ZywOo and undermining Heroic's run by tapping into Stare and 2G2 players, Hugo has finished highest up out of any celebrity team so far this season. 2% finish, $50 in his back pocket thanks to 22Bet. And again, adding himself to Flom, P2, and Freya. These are the 4 members of the Big Bucks Club. Still no 1% finishes yet, but we as a collective are indeed getting closer. And while we have to congratulate Hugo, I also wanted to say a quick thank you to Lucy. Obviously, Lucy stood in for me for the Cologne playoffs, and since we're talking about Maniac being at the top, where's Lucy? I'm just saying that the queen of fantasy who dethroned Maniac, broke his heart at that last event in the previous season, is nowhere to be found. Lucy having another rough fantasy event, currently sitting 21st on the leaderboard. And I'm just gonna add salt to the wound. She's losing to Moses. Ugh. Now that hurts. Lucy, I believe in your ability to rebound. I'm just jabbing you while you're down there. Okay, we're getting our punches in while we can. I expect you to come back. You better come back, or else the reigning defending champion, you're making us look bad. But thank you for standing in. Now I am back, okay? I am back, and I'm here to talk you guys through Gamers8. It feels like an impossible event to predict. At least that's just my honest gut instinct. Because again, we're talking round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, grand finals. You want to pick players, in my mind, who are at least going to win their opening matchups. Trying to predict who's gonna be in the grand finals seems incredibly difficult, but there is an elephant in the room in terms of the seeding here. It feels like Heroic, even despite their struggles in Cologne, and I'm not just talking playoffs, but also some of those sketchy group stage games, they've been given a decent run here at Gamers8. They'll be opening up versus Falcons, a very unproven entity, despite it being one of the most curious and honestly promising rosters crafted within the offseason. Then Apex or Gamer Legion. That's the first 2 matches for Heroic. Falcons, and then Apex or Gamer Legion. Seems very doable. Seems like we could expect them to be in the semifinals, and I would argue kind of open book and same situation for Vitality, an opening game versus MIBR, but a more difficult second match versus either Furia or Na'Vi. So it seems like the Heroic Vitality stands are gonna be banking on that 2-2 something or other setup once their draft comes through, but the rest of this pack just seems impossible to unpack. I'm just gonna put a warning sign up. My gut instinct is to maybe not double down on teams. I may very well do this fantasy event with a single player from 5 different teams. That's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm feeling. What do I know? I'm just in 4th place this season, you know? So far. One of the teams to note in my mind is Virtus.pro. We haven't seen them since they made some roster changes, bringing Mir in, and even though we know that Kickert's technically on the transfer list, I still think that Virtus.pro versus FaZe is a really interesting opening game that could maybe lean you away from FaZe Clan. Their struggles are very real at the moment. Cologne Champions opening up versus 9, who showed promise despite an early departure from Cologne as well. This ENCE versus Liquid game could be a pretty fiery start, even though obviously you'd have to take ENCE as favorites. It just feels to me like a matter of time before Liquid get another upset, and this is definitely within their ballpark in my mind. Cloud9 versus Fnatic. I hope Cloud9 have been able to put in a bit of practice time now that Axile is guaranteed able to travel and play with the team. Starting your season and this super team run on a quarterfinal stage in Cologne seems pretty crazy, but it looked promising as well. So again, I'm not quite sure what advice to give this event. It just seems like this will be one of the most unpredictable, upset potential events that we're gonna have all fantasy season long. When do we ever get a format like this? No padding points, no lower brackets, no best of ones. It is best of 3s the entire way through, all the way to grand finals. Now, if I had to unpack this, if I'm here to dish out a little advice, point you guys in the right directions, or at the very least, all I can do is maybe highlight a few considerations that I think are worth your time. So when we talk big baller, as we always do, you've got to put ZywOo at the top of the list. And I think ZywOo's actually come down noticeably in price. Sitting in the 220,000s isn't crazy for a player that just a season ago was up in the 245s. It's a considerable choice, especially when, again, you look at their matches. But if you don't want to splash that cash so heavily on ZywOo because you think that this Spinks and potentially Flame Z combo, who are now in those 215-esque area, are going to steal some of his kills, then maybe consider those Vitality players as well. But right now, Vitality's price tag is just through the roof. In comparison to Heroic, where I want to net the second big baller option. Now, it's not quite a big baller because he's not too expensive, but I think that's the perfect point here. Stavn. Now, Stavn's struggles in Colognes happened on the stage, as they tend to do, statistically, dropping off on those big playoff games. This is an event where I don't think Stavn may hit that rough patch of nerves. This is an event where I think Stavn is the most reliable piece of Heroic at the moment, and for that reason, is a good choice. He's affordable, but at the same time, still a big baller. And right around the same price range as Stavn is the highest rated player of the other grand finalist team. Yeah, that's right, I'm talking about Sunpius. Not that big of a baller, but still somebody who I think is reliably going to be netting you some rating. And if you're big on the ENCE train, then definitely consider Sunpius. Outside of the grand finals, his rating was phenomenal, and he was taking over maps, much like I expect him to do with that opening game versus Liquid. And then of course you've got the classic G2 combo. Now which one do you pick? It's tough to say. Obviously, m0NESY and NiKo looking so promising throughout Cologne. Will they be able to repeat that success back-to-back events? I think they can, but I think with the other affordable price tags of the G2 players, me personally, I would steer away from them and not quite consider them in the big baller category. But let's talk safe bet. If we're talking safe bet, then I can't help but focus in on that G2 roster. Now, winning Cologne is no easy feat, and doing it in the fashion that G2 did, I think is very promising. This isn't a one-off G2 in my mind. It feels like they've got a groove right now, and it may not last 6 months, 9 months, but it could very well last another month or two. And for that reason, they are my first pick for safe bet. It's the double combo of Hunter and JKS. Both very affordable, although no longer in the 190,000s like we saw for Cologne, which was just such a great bargain. They're very fairly priced at the moment, and comparably priced to the other duo of safe bet picks. I'm talking TeSeS and Sjuush. Now, Jabby's in that conversation because he's also similarly priced, but I think Jabby's having some struggles right now, and we don't know what's going on in the Heroic camp. We don't know if maybe roster changes are on mind with this most recent failure to beat Astralis in the playoffs. And so I think that when you look at their run throughout Gamers8, the seeding here helps them immensely, and it's for that reason I put them in safe bet consideration. If you want the better team and the safer bet, then definitely take G2, but you have to take into consideration the run that Heroic are gonna go on here. And then last but not least, we've got the eco pick. Now I think right now we've got a lot of players who are a bit outpriced, or just a few $1,000s more than they were a month ago, because now we're rolling through the second half of 2023. But one player who definitely turned my head back in Cologne had to be Snappi. In-game leader of ENTS, put up numbers. In fact, that one map they were able to win in the grand finals was nearly a single-handed performance from Snappi. He is the highest rated in-game leader, essentially, from the run within Cologne, and for that reason, I think that Snappi is worth considering now. With everybody else being still a bit more pricey, Snappi included has had a few thousand added to his price tag. Also, he's got a great team, and he's got a decent run. Assuming they can get through Liquid, then we're talking Cloud9 versus Fnatic, and a very well-oiled back-to-back grand finalist ENTS compared to a new Cloud9 roster. You be the judge, but I do think Snappi is a promising choice for his price tag. Somebody who also showed promise back in Cologne and could very well do it here, although has a very tough run in my mind, is Roy of Fnatic. Now, Roy opens versus Cloud9 and then has to play ENTS, but individually, Roy is underpriced right now, no doubt in my mind. His price tag still reflects the struggles of Fnatic towards the tail end of last season, and definitely doesn't reflect what we got out of him in Cologne. Same can be said for the last eco pick, and unfortunately once more, I'm just trying to give you options, but I still think Snappi's number one because these other two guys are just having such difficult runs. That's gonna be Cello. $188,000 for Cello seems so incredibly cheap, because it is. We're talking about the entry fragger of the team, someone who's definitely gonna be getting engaged on the T sides. If they didn't open versus Navi, I would have far more faith in choosing Cello, but I'm trying to force the issue here. I really do feel like all roads lead to Snappi for this fantasy event. And it's a short road. Remember, 4 best of 3s are all that separates 5 players and their coach from the lion's share of $1 million in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be an action-packed, kind of out-of-nowhere type event, and it could definitely change the narrative going into the bigger events that follow suit. Pro League's around the corner, CS2's around the corner. This is an amazing opportunity for somebody to hunker down, play 4 best of 3s, and walk away with a massive amount of money. So make sure you guys keep your eyes glued to HLTV for all things Gamers8 just around the corner.